So, all right, let's get ready to get started.
Is that your real background or that's a fake background?
Nah, nah, it's
Your background, bro.
No, I'm talking about. I'm talking about. It's about Rutman.
That's my background, bro.
Oh, okay, that looks nice.
Yep. That's
yeah,
my
all right. That's not as
It looks
That's
real
not his
though.
background.
It looks like you are in
Yeah.
some fusion center or something.
Yeah.
I work with NSA.
Yeah,
NSA.
I think you'll be fired if you start showing NSA's. You show how their setup is. All right, guys, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
All right, cool.
What's poppin', fellas?
Yep.
Hey, what up, Debo? All right. So today we're going to go over CIM compliance and just what that is and sort of what it means.
Yep.
And hopefully by the end of this class, you guys understand a little bit about compliance and stuff like that. All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sorry, is that background noise?
Yeah.
Is that you?
I can.
Yeah, it's me, unfortunately. I'm at the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'll mute everybody else in the meantime. You can unmute yourself if you need a chat, but outside of that, I already have enough noise on my end, so you know. All right, so CIM compliance, what is it? So basically, CIM compliance in a nutshell is a way that Splunk uses its data models to make data sets, and it doesn't have to be data models, it could just be data in itself, to make data compliant across the board. So what does that mean? So if you have a bunch of different data sets that you're bringing in information from, whether it's firewalls, IDS, IPSs, you're bringing it from like ID cards, regardless of what it is, as long as you're bringing that data in, you're going to need to normalize it so that if one user takes an action on a certain appliance, you see that same user taking the same action on different appliances. So what CIM allows you to do is essentially to normalize your data. So user equals user in your firewall. Looks at the same user, whether it's locally or on the network. User looks the same way, whether it's on an ID card, whether it's whatever device it is or appliance it is, it looks the same way. So if I log into my laptop and it says user Saul Levy with a capital U, for instance. So let me do something on Adam quickly. So come on. All right, so for instance, if I go into here, we're gonna give a detailed this. So user equals Levy, right? So that's one version of your field. We know Splunk operates based on fields versus SER equals Levy versus CR equals Levy versus owner equals Levy. Same person all across, just different fields that attach to it. It's just based on how the developers, tag their different parts of the data. So that's all it is. So in here, you need to normalize all of this to be the same thing. So whatever you want it to be, whether it's user or owner, whatever it is you want to utilize, you want to standardize across the board so that if you do a search index equals star, you say user equals this guy right here, is going to bring up all instances of that user. And we know that Splunk operates better when you have key value pairs. So you're not just doing like a wildcard search of like something random. You're doing it based upon a value that's attributed to a field. So when you're doing your search, so for instance, index equals blah, whatever. Then you do user equals, something is better than index equals blah, and then something. So when you look at performance-wise, this operates a lot better when you do this way. Now imagine if you have to tag a bunch of other different things. So whether that user has a fail login, whether that user has, and for instance, you can say action equals failed, results equals failed, status equals failed. All of this symbolizes the same thing, right? So, but it's still, when you run a search, you won't find that unless you just do like a failed, and then you do it that way. But that's, again, that's not a smart search because you could pull up a whole bunch of other different things. So in here, you want to see specifically when an action or something that that user does gets rendered as a failure. So this is the way well, this is one of the reasons why Splunk introduces the CIM compliance, so that now you can actually start tagging stuff and you can start making stuff easier to search across, and you start adding your fields now to your data models. So now when you're running faster queries, you can actually grab stuff much faster. Does that make sense? Anything I need to explain on that? Cool, awesome. All right, so we're gonna build a quick dashboard here. Not a dashboard, we're gonna build a quick data model. So we go to data model here. We're gonna build one, we're gonna call this SAR, and the name matters. So we'll call this, let's do class underscore tutorial. We'll just call it that. That's the data model. And you can save in whatever app context you want to save it. At some point in time, you can also export it to be global as well. So don't worry about that. This is just where it's created in and located in. So we'll put this inside of OpenPath Splunk. That's actually the app I'm building. So we'll put this in SecOps. All right, so we built our data model, and we're going to now look for some events that we want to start tagging to make stuff make sense. So let's look for the different data sets we have. So metadata, type of the source types, and so star 24 hours. So we have Perfmon, that's some win event logs, access combined, Linux audit logs, some Splunk daemon stuff, Viking random. I don't know what that is, but it might be Timmy, I guess. All right, so let's maybe look for win event log stuff. So let's do that now. So tstats count where index equals star and source type equals win event star by index. Let's see what indexes these belong in. So lane has one. Looks like it's only a lane. Let me go back. Let's see what a lane stuff looks like. So index equals a lane underscore index. Oh, spelled that wrong. All right, so here we go. So we have product name, we have status, we have a lot of, so by default, this is like an SF format, common event model, where it's basically all that stuff is usually like has key value pairs. So whenever you see key value pairs like equals blah blah, Splunk is automatically going to extract that. So left side is going to be your field, right side is going to be your value. So type values this. Looks like somebody's trying to enter. Let me admit, okay. All right, and then so these are really easy to deal with. When you have data sets that don't have the equal sign, that's a little bit more difficult. But even in that sense, like let's say we wanted to rename product name to be vendor. Well, no, manufacturer, we want that to be vendor, because sometimes that's what your data models will require. So vendor product, so you see is Microsoft Windows 10, then vendor ID, but we just say we want to call it just vendor. The vendor is going to be Microsoft, which is equals to the manufacturer here. So you can do several things here. You can do an alias, you can do a calculated field, but you have different options. You can do an extraction. It just depends on how you want to set that up. In our case, let's say we wanted to add, okay, so in our data model that we're creating here, we're going to create a root event. Actually, I'm sorry, let's do a root search. So we're going to do win event log. So we're going to say index equals lane underscore index. And then let's run this for a little bit and see what we get. So within 24 hours, you should see those events that we have populating. All right. And then sometimes you may want to be a little bit more restrictive so that it grabs stuff that you care about. So in this case, we're going to add our source type. Actually, let's keep it all, because this would be good actually, because we can have access combined. So we're just going to keep it at base level, this index. So save that. And then if you do a add your fields, you can do auto extracted. And then here you can look at last 24 hours, since that's what we're looking at over here, to match that time frame. And we can see what we want here. So we're going to pull out a bunch of stuff. So in data models, the more fields you add, the more storage space that's going to cost you. So you just got to be careful of that. So in here, let's say we wanted to add, so we have account, domain. So we want to add manufacturer, that's for sure. But we want to call it something different. So we're going to call that add a field. So we're going to call that vendor. So it's going to be vendor equals vendor. So we're going to save that now. And we have that. But we know this field doesn't exist inside of this data set. So that's not going to help us. Give me a second. Let me plug my charger in. Right. Give me a second, guys. Just got to plug my charger in. Oh, where am I going? It's right here. No worries, no worries. Thank you. Yeah. All right, cool. All right, cool. So we plugged up. All right, so we're gonna add that, and then we're gonna add MAC. Maybe not MAC address. Let's add product. So we're gonna add product. So add a field, auto extracted, and we can actually even do it in here simpler, but in most cases, it's not going to be the case because you already have something done for you. So product. So PODUCT. Right. So save that. So we have product, and then we have vendor. All right. So we'll save this temporarily just for right now. Then we'll use this. In order for the data model to be accelerated, it's going to need for you to change it. So we're going to do everyone admin right now, then accelerate it, and then we're going to do it by, let's just do a day. Let's accelerate it a day. So now it should start building. So if we go back here, and then I go to class. So this should start building now, as you can see here. DM is building. Size on disk right now is 0, so there's nothing there yet. So it should still be building for a little bit. And we can do a search just to see how the progress is going over here. So let's do data model. Let's do search. Oh, sweet. Looks like I already got a few stuff in there. So see, when event logged our product. So, oh, so it did get product. So it looks like product might be a field in our events over here. So let's duplicate this. Why don't you let me duplicate? It's super weird. Okay, I'm not sure why it's not letting me duplicate, but it's okay. Let's just do it here. All right. So we have a product here. So let's do our search in that index again. So this guy we have over here. All right, so we should have a field called product somewhere if that's the case, for it to pull that. And exactly, so we have a field called product. So it's Windows. So that's why that shows up, because in our data model, we have a field called product, and it's showing that's a Windows product. But Windows, I don't. Windows to me is more like an operating system than anything. So Microsoft is more so the vendor, the people that produce these products. So in what I would want to rename this as is like, and this is more so like a appliance. Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it, but this more so is like the type of product it is, I guess. So I can see where they got that at, but typically for something like this, I would want to see something different. But maybe we'll do vendor to be the actual vendor itself than what they have. So in our case over here, we have in a lanes index, we have a manufacturer, and we're going to use the manufacturer as a vendor. So what we're going to do is field alias this. So we'll go to now, go to field alias. So we're going to say field alias, and we're going to add a new one. So we're going to add this guy in, yeah, fine, search app. It's fine. So we're going to say this is going to be manufacturer as vendor. So what we're going to do then, we got to grab it either by the source type host or source. So we'll go here. In my case, I'm just going to use the source type that we already know. So one event log for this guy. So I'm going to put that here. And then what we're going to do then is grab the field that we want. So the field that we want is manufacturer in here. And we're going to say this guy now, whenever we see that on our left side over here. Manufacturer. Come on, bro. So whenever we see manufacturers, we want that to be listed as vendor. So then all you do then is go to vendor. So MANUFACTOR, then vendor. Save that. And let me make sure I got the, because I think it's a capital M. So I got to make sure that's, yeah, it's a capital M. So that needs to be the same. So let's look for administrator, created an app, and manufacturer. So we got to change the permissions as well. So whenever you create it, it's automatically going to be in private mode. So you need to MAN. Let me make sure I spell that right because my spelling is always bad. So let's grab that. Okay, looks like I did get it right. All right, so we'll save that. And then we got to make sure that the field that we wanted is the same field that we have in our data model. So our data model, we said here is going to be vendor, a bit lowercase. So it needs to be the same field in here. So manufacturer is now vendor. So now that we go in here, let's refresh this. We can do a debug refresh on it. Let me hide this thing. All right, so let's do a debug refresh on this. So debug refresh essentially refreshes certain endpoints so that you're able to, so you don't have to do a restart essentially for certain configuration files. So I'm gonna do a debug refresh. Right, come on, buddy. And depending on the amount of like configurations that it's refreshing, it determines the amount of time it takes to refresh all your different endpoints. All right, so I'm gonna try to mute when I can so it doesn't mess up as much as I can on the recordings. All right, so we got that. So now that's done, we should be able to go search now in so dash, I'm sorry, not dashboard, search. We should be able to search now. Index equals a lane underscore index fields. All right, let's look for vendor. See if that guy's showing up now. Yeah, I don't see right here, but let's go see. Maybe showing up over here. All right, so let's do vendor. Sweet. So now we have vendor. So now vendor is extracted just as we wanted it to be. So now, and it should be manufacturer. I don't know why it's only showing up one. It should be showing all of these. So I need to figure out what's going on with that. Yeah, I need to see what's going on with that. This may be also getting used as something else somewhere. So that might be why it's only extracting Microsoft. But essentially, now that we have that in there, we should be able to run our data model again. That should be able to extract our vendor now. So now you see vendor is now extracted. So now essentially you've added your product and your vendor now to your data model. So this is how you add different fields to data models so that you don't have to, stop your data model for whatever reason and then add different fields. So now I only have two though. So if I wanted to add more, I have to do that differently. This is the same sort of step that you would utilize if you are this is the same sort of step you have to utilize if you're in production environment. I mean, you're not going to be able to just go anywhere and just start stopping data models. You're going to get fired because these data models are powering a lot of different dashboards, alerts, searches, and all that other stuff. As soon as you stop it, it's going to cause an issue, unless no one really cares what's going on in your environment. But all right, so far we got one event log. Let's say we wanted to add access combined. Take this out. We don't need to filter in. All right, so access combined. So in access combined, right now we don't have much in here. We only so when you run out your data model, you see that those events aren't pulled in here because it's not tagged. That stuff doesn't really matter. So I mean, I'm sorry, it's not, your vendor stuff is not pulled in here with that. So if I do this, which is
Hey, bro.
Uh-huh.
I mean, if you have, any data sets like firewall or, the network related data sets, can you pick those data sets and do the complaints? Because, I mean, those are the more, complicated data sets, right?
Yeah.
So,
I can probably do malware very quickly for us. Let me try to model.
A quick question. Let me follow up to that. I thought that so we were able to add some fields without disabling the acceleration.
Correct.
Okay, I missed that part.
Yeah, so it all depends on how you build your data model. That's why it's very important when you're building it. Right now we only have two fields.
I have one question here, sir.
Sure, bro.
So if our correlation searches are using the summaries data, right?
Uh-huh.
So the summaries of the data model. So if you add the data model right now, and if the data model, if you add the field right now, and the data model is not accelerated, obviously there will be some missing events, right?
Right. Yep. Yeah. So
we have to wait. So we have to wait till the data model is accelerated, even though we add the new fields, and run the search.
Well, for it to catch up, remember, that's why the acceleration matters, for it to go back and catch up. So where's the so the backfill range, for it to catch up for any events that it missed. So this is why this matters here, for you to go backfill any of the stuff that needs to be summarized that you're missing. But again, if you stop your acceleration, this no longer matters, right? Because you're not summarizing stuff.
Okay. So just like okay, got you.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
So I mean, the best practice is to backfill the data model pretty frequently, right?
Well, it really depends on like what the use case is, right? So if sometimes your data models miss and you have a lot of stuff firing off and it needs to go back and search for stuff and they've missed, maybe like your on your monitoring console, sometimes when you see those skips data model accelerations, sometimes it may need to go back and try to backfill some stuff that may have missed because of those time frames. So it would determine that, and also how long it's running. So right now we say that, the maximum time it can run is 1 hour. But let's say you don't want it to run an hour, you want it to run like 30 minutes. Well, then you got to make sure your time range that you're asking it to go back is not something crazy that's going to go over an hour, because you're always going to miss that. And then you may have a bunch of other stuff that's also being summarized that needs to be added. So all of this is going to play into how far back you backfill it and how often you backfill it.
Okay, cool. I got you. And can you please send me, if you have any searches, to find out the missing, events or fields before backfilling the data model. I mean, I just want to know if you have any searches to quickly find out if there are any missing events.
I used to have some. I can dig it back up, probably my old Splunk notes, but I'll get some for you, bro.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
Yep.
It's maybe I'm mistaken here. Anytime I've tried to maybe add a new field to my data model, or maybe create, I've always had an issue where it says I had to disable, it's accelerated, so I had to disable that. So, but you were saying that there's a way we can add it without and have the data model keep running.
Oh, to add what now? To add fields?
Yeah, so add fields to make any adjustment.
No. Yeah, let me go back. So these fields that are already here, that's
Right.
it. You can't add no more. If you want to add different kinds of fields, then that's when you do the field aliases. So if you want to, maybe say, okay, in here, I have group, and group needs to somehow be inside of my data model.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you would say field alias, maybe vendor now is equal to group. That's the only way you can add that. You have to have some type of field that's.
Well, what I was saying is in terms of, so we would, if we want to add, so right now this data model has two extracted fields.
That's it.
So
You got.
I'll normally go to edit. If I'll go to edit.
Yep.
And I'll say edit acceleration.
Right.
And I typically would have to,
you have to unaccelerate it. No, I get your point. You have to stop it. That's the only way you can add fields.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the only way you can add fields.
I thought you said there was a way around it without having to do that.
Well, the only way to do that again is if you create your fields early in advance. So if I already
field
know
aliases.
Yeah, field alias is what you're gonna do there to add those fields.
Oh, okay, field alias. Okay, good. Okay, so that would
So you have to predefine it. If you know for in any instance that you may have some type of field that may need to be mapped to this for some reason, you can create arbitrary fields early in advance and then accelerate it, and then you can field alias to those fields. So you can create like something called my favorite field 1 is going to be something in the future that I'm going to alias it to. So then, just as we did before, my favorite field whatever now is going to be alias to name, alias to ratio, or whatever it is that you want to add to your data.
So now, quick question. Typically, out of the box, the data models are pre-configured with these fields, right?
Well, it's some. So let's look at malware data model. I think that would help us out very well. So.
They never have what they need. In my experience, they never have what they need. And they'll screw up ES.
So this is malware data models documentation. So the data sets have to be tagged. So you either have an attack or you have an operation. So, it's either going to be something that's attacking you, or it's going to be operational, something that's within your environment. So all these need to be tagged at some point in time. And then as you go through here, these are the field names that this data model expects. So if I go in settings here, and not settings, let's go to my data models, and I pull up malware. If you see inside malware, these are the fields that it expects, right? So all action, category, date, signature, and these are all the fields that in the Splunk documentation it tells you that you have to have. Some of these fields are not. Go ahead.
Sorry, bro. Continue. I'll ask once you finish this part.
Okay. So some of these fields.
Interrupt.
Oh, no worries. Some of these fields are usually, by default in your event. So in anything that's malware related, there's usually some type of action, but based on how Splunk's their CIM Compliance app works. Like whenever vendors submit or developers submit a TA, they have to go through Splunk CIM Compliance to make sure that whatever they extracted, whatever they've done has gone through. It's basically mapping that data set to something that is traditionally mapped to. So like Palo Alto firewall is going to be mapped to your PAN traffic or network traffic data model, or your traditional McAfee is going to be mapped to your malware data sets, or Carbon Black may be mapped to malware, or maybe mapped to more than different data models, maybe mapped to maybe authentication, maybe mapped to other things. So they're traditionally going to have a bunch of fields that are going to automatically be included inside of your data model. So now when you do your regular data model search like I did over here, these fields are already going to be extracted. Now it just depends on your TA to pull those fields out. So that's why when you're creating CIM compliance TAs, those CIM compliance TAs typically have to have these fields in it, because your data model is expecting it. Say, hey, dude, if you're going to be extracting these fields for me, I need to have these fields extracted. So that's essentially what it's expecting here. Now, within your data model itself, though, there's certain fields that you don't extract by default. So like in here, it says destination business unit. So this stuff is typically extracted for you by ES already. So when you're creating your assets, all this stuff is already tagged and stuff like that for you. So ES does the hard work for some parts of it. Some of it is UBA, some of it ITSI. So they do some of this tagging for you already, so you don't have to do that. So if you see here, for instance, it says, let's look at, so signature is one that needs to be in your fields. So, whatever that signature may be, maybe a SHA, maybe MD5, maybe whatever it is, it needs to be in your fields. You can see here that this is some of the things that it's expecting. So signature, it could be a specific virus. Let's say expecting a Trojan, or expecting a W32, Zeus, whatever it is, it could be something like that. Whereas it could also be like a hash itself. But your signature may not necessarily be the traditional thing itself. So you also see here, there's also file hash as well. There's also file name. So it just depends on how the vendor categorizes that specific field. And then you have stuff like this, right? Where you have source business unit. And then it says here, this field is automatically provided by assets and identity correlation features of ES. Do not define extractions for this field when writing add-ons. So your add-on, whoever developed your add-on, if they wrote this, it's a trash add-on. They didn't read Splunk very well when they were creating the add-ons. So when you're building add-ons and stuff, make sure that you're not adding this stuff there that's not needed, because that stuff is already extracted for you by advanced applications. Now, if you're using this in if you're building like your own ES, which is something I had to sort of do, then yeah, you would have to extract it because you don't have ES. You're trying to mimic ES without having ES. So yeah, you'll have to extract the source category, source priority, some of the stuff that you traditionally don't have to do. All right, any questions? Let me stop there for just a quick second.
So I have a general question actually. So I mean, for the root data models, it is completely fine, right? So, but if we are something onboarding a new data set, how to assess if that requires a data model or not? How to do the assessment.
So I recently was asked to tag or map Carbon Black to a malware data model. Traditionally, Carbon Black doesn't do that. It's not mapped to malware. It's mapped to a whole bunch of other stuff, but not malware. So what you would need to do then is look at the field. So let me see if I have another security related event. So let's do metadata and go look for something again. I think I have Palo Alto stuff in here. Type equals source types, index equals, I think open path, event, gen. Let's go all time. I'm pretty sure I have something in here for that. Come on, bro. Check my flight again. All right, so starts working for. All right, cool. I got some time. All right, so we have quite a few in here. So let's look for Palo Alto. So let's do search source type equals pan star. Matter of fact, I should probably just do T-stats. Okay, so it looks like I have it anyway. Okay, so I don't even need to do that. So let's just go in here. Let's go back maybe a year. Let's go back a year. All right, so here's some Palo Alto stuff. So we'll stop it here because there's a lot of Palo Alto stuff I had. So here, I used Event Gen to generate pan traffic and some pan threat. So here's pan threat. So we know pan threat is tagged that way because it's a threat. So typically, if it's a brand new data set, you have no clue about it. You have to understand what the product does, like what it's supposed to do. Is it supposed to block, is supposed to block connections at the host level, at the network level? Is it supposed to be a WAF, a web application firewall? Is it supposed to be IDS, IPS? Is it supposed to be just a signature based threat detection tool? Whatever it is, you have to understand first the product and what it is. And then once you understand that, then you start looking at the fields, and then you start understanding, okay, what do I see? If the product is it's a malware stopping product, what do I see malware, and what does it do to that malware when it sees it? Does it stop it? Does it block it? Does it quarantine it? Does it send it up to be assessed by another cloud source? And then does it bring down what exactly is happening there? So that's the first thing that you need to understand about it. You see here, it says there's a block that's being done here. And it has like other actions that are tagged within that. So your data set's going to have something that's going to tell you what exactly is happening to, within that specific event. So it may be a transaction that you may need to do to look at, okay, within the last 3 or 4 minutes, these are the X events that are seen, and this is what's being happening. So one event may say, I saw malware. Then the next event may say, I notified user. And then the next event say, I quarantined it. And then the next event says, I removed it. So you have to look at it in context of what's happening in your environment and what that product is doing. And once you figure out the context, then that's when you start doing your tagging to say, hey, this needs to be tagged as a block. This needs to be tagged as identified. This needs to be tagged as, an external attack. This needs to be tagged as an internal attack. So as you see these things, then you can start defining how your data model or which data model to use. And the only way to do that is literally by going through each data model. There's no easy way around it. You have to go through each data model, look at the different fields it's expecting, and then you start tagging it or do field aliases based on that. Does that sort of answer your question, Naresh, bro?
Yep, I did. Thank you very much.
I know you said there's no way around it, but what's the easiest way? Because if you bring in, for example, data that just has no SIM context whatsoever, and obviously, like for example, I have a situation where I'm bringing in some data, but I know that it's web data, so I can always go back and tag it correctly, add it to the event types. But if you had to, you were given a task to basically make sure the data models are being fed the right data, and would you just have to just go through all your source types and just try to figure out are there some good queries that can kind of, or something?
Yeah.
I believe there's got to be something out there that can give you an idea of what the different data,
So the easiest way to do that data model equals, let's do class. Was it class underscore? What the heck was our data model?
Tutorial.
Tutorial?
Yeah.
Are you sure, bro? It's tutorial? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so
Sure.
So sweet, thanks, bro. So this is telling you what's being whitelisted. So automatically Splunk is saying this is what I'm viewing from your data sets, and this is what I'm automatically tagging it. So then you can look at that also by source type, right? So then whatever you tagged it as, so now you can see, okay, whatever is being pulled into your data models.
But I'm assuming this have been tagged already. I'm just saying if it wasn't tagged. So I'm trying to, I think I'm trying to to answer a question that I think I may know, like
There's no
if it's,
shortcut, bro. There's no shortcut.
there's no shortcut.
There's no
Okay.
shortcut. I know what you're looking for. There's no
If
shortcut.
there's nothing at all
Yeah,
associated with it, there's no tag, there's no event tag.
Yeah,
You just
you have to figure out what that data is and how to
and add
apply
it. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Got you.
no
All right.
shortcut there, bro.
Well, you always have the shortcuts. I guess what happened this time around, bro?
Yeah, I couldn't find a way around this one, man.
Yeah, all right, cool.
All right, so yeah, so once you you figure out what source types or sources or whatever or hosts, so you can do sources. So whatever it is that you figure out is now being pulled into your data model, then you can start saying, source. I'm sorry, I don't know why I did sources. You can now figure out whatever it is now is being pulled into that data model, and then if that sort of source or source type or whatever it is similar to the data that you're pulling, then you can start saying, okay, this may be similar to what I'm expecting it to be. So for instance, you're looking at web, right? So data model, because I think web, my source type. Let's see if I have it in here. So access combined is what web is looking at. So usually there's going to be a lot more, right? So in this case right now it's only pulling the access combined. But if there's like a whole bunch of other events that typically are CIM compliant, those are going to be pulled into your specific data models because it's expecting it. And as long as you know that your thing is web or is web related or you have some type of source type that's similar, all you need to do then is just go look at that other source type and see what fields it has. And you can say, okay, so this is somewhat similar to this, and then maybe I can tag it as that. And then the other thing is the only sort of shortcut there, and I use a shortcut with fingers, is that you have to have the owner or the product SME to be able to tell you, okay, so whenever I look at this data, this is what I expect it to be. So this is what I'm interpreting this as. And that's sort of like your shortcut there. And at the end of the day, you still have to understand what data models are what to pull those in. I'm going to try to rush now because I only have about 7 minutes. I'm going to do a quick calculated field on a maybe let's do it on threat data. So in our threat data right now, our pan threat data, we have vendor, which is Palo Alto Networks. So this one's already pulled. And then we have, let's see what else. So let's look at the actions. Let's see if something makes sense here. So where's the message at? There's usually a message. It's usually MSG or a message. This is not there. Okay. So subcategory browser type or browser based. So client server, email, photo. Okay. Trying to find something that's okay. Threat name, executable. Okay, so here's a Windows executable that's run. So PI related data that it found. So let's click on PI. So now it's looking at all PI related information. So JS, PI, information. So from server to client, it notices some PI related information data. So what I can do then is say, we found some PI related information, and I want to now, instead of the threat name, I want to change this now to, so PI is usually, what do we call that? Let's call it compliance. So we'll do compliance. So what we can do then is create a calculated field in here. So we go to fields, then we go to calculated fields, and then the way calculated fields work, same thing with your source type. So we know that our source type is going to be pan threat.
Pan threat.
That's what we're using. So we're going to use that, and then we're going to say the name of the field that you're going to call it. So this one we're going to say compliance. So imagine compliance is the field now that's inside of your data model. So this is where this will make sense. So compliance is the field that's in your data model. So now what you're doing is creating an eval statement. So you're going to say if, what was it, threat name equals to, PII, we're gonna call this HIPAA. All right, and then otherwise, sorry, I put a little extra thing in here. Otherwise, you're gonna say HIPAA other. So then we'll do this. So basically, what this will look like in your search, just so you know how to do it outside of that. So it will look like this. So you do, sorry, eval. And then you're gonna say threat underscore name equals this. So that's basically, not, I'm sorry, you're gonna do compliance. So this is essentially what it's doing here. So all you're doing is just stripping out this piece. You're adding this now here. So you're gonna say if threat name is equals that, it's gonna be either compliance, otherwise you're gonna name it other. So then remember, it's always gonna be private. So we're gonna, it's all apps, and then admin that, save that. So gonna have to probably debug refresh again on this guy. Let me see if I go out and come back in if it's already done it. Let's just see. So then let's do index equals open event gen, and then oh shoot, I'm not looking for source type equals to pan threats, and then compliance equals star. Let's run this for year to date, run that. And now if it's already showing up, it should pull some data, but it looks like it may not be extracted yet. So we'll see. Let me make sure I spell compliance right too. So that compliance is spelled right. So then let's look at our search. So it looks like it's not gotten that yet. So let's do this. But refresh as well. And the other thing I always like to do also, sometimes Splunk is a little weird how it does this stuff. So I'm gonna do this. Add that in here. What the? Oh, I put it around. Sorry. That was silly. So sometimes you got to put a single quote around the fields. It's not always, but I've seen it like if you have like JSON related stuff where you have, nested, uh, 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 nested fields. So if you see something like threats, you, and then something like this, dot whatever. Sometimes you have to nest that and you have to put this around it in order for it to recognize that as a field. Not always, but sometimes. But if you do this anyway, Splunk automatically always says, hey, that's a field. So, all right. So I have 0 minutes left. So I'm going to try to finish up here on this. Shit, I gotta run to catch my flights. All right, cool. So that's refreshed. So let's do US search. So index equals to open path event gen. Now let's do compliance equals to star. It should hopefully show up now. Come on, bro. All right, there we go. So compliance finally showing up. So now if we go down to our fields, we see compliance, others. So right now it's just others. So when it finds PI, it should come up at some point in time. Once it finds PI, hopefully I did PI right. Come on, bro. So now it's pulling everything other.
Hey, bro.
Yeah, bro.
So I mean, we probably need. I mean, some of us, and I especially probably need. You know, right from the beginning, right? You know, for example, you take the AWS, right? AWS, so you take the Cisco ASA or Palo Alto. So we need right from the beginning, like add-on installation, you know, how to map the data. And I've done this like an year ago, but I lost it now. But I just want to revise. So if anyone of here is interested, I mean, I would like to have one more SIM compliance class, you know, right from
Yeah, I can do
building
it next week.
from scratch.
If you guys are interested, I can do it next week again. I can do installing like a specific add-on, and then we can map that specific add-on. Like let's say the carbon black, which is fresh on my mind, so we can do the carbon black one. I can map that for you guys, so you can see from beginning to end how that's done. I think it's sort of like difficult here because not I had to set like a baseline for certain folks who may not be at your level yet, bro. So that everybody
Mm-hmm.
now that attended this class, you should understand what SIM
Mm-hmm.
compliance is. You should understand now how data models sort of work, maybe not fully, but how you can tag some of those stuff. And then I can take you now through like one example of like an add-on, and you can pick anyone you want. You can say, hey, bro, can you do this add-on, and we can do that. If you guys want to do that next week. But I know I'm running out of time now, but there's probably a lot.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine, bro. I mean, don't miss the flight now. Yeah, you can wrap it up and
Quick, one last question. So when I first started working with Splunk, the biggest issue I had with the data model, I didn't understand. Even though I could build one, I just learned it.
Yep.
I didn't understand why. So for some of the people that may be more on the beginner level, can you explain why would the first people you even use a data model as opposed to just regular search?
Right. So that's what I was explaining like in the beginning here.
Sorry, I kind of missed the first few minutes.
Oh, no worries. So, you have data coming from your web traffic. You have data coming from, your operating systems. You have data coming from, laptops. You have data coming from, uh, from I don't know, ID card, scanners. You have data coming from your point of sale systems. You have data coming from firewalls. You have data from everywhere. And that data itself may have admin equals to, not admin, but let's say privilege person equals to S levy. And of course, I spelled probably privilege wrong. And then what that would mean then is this is the user here, but then in all your other data sets, your user is any one of these fields.
Mm-hmm.
So now if you do a search in Splunk where you say user equals S-Levy, you're not going to get any of this other stuff depending on if you use capital U or capital USER or, you use this one or this one or this one. You won't grab that. Now, if you did, Slebby in general, you probably find that all across, but that may not be effective. So that could be pulling up data that's like, well, Slebby is part of, this group, or that could be something that says this email was sent to Slebby. That's not exactly the data you're looking for. You're looking for specific data where the user equals to S Levy, where he did some type of action, where he did something, or his footprint is somewhere. So that's why you would want to have this SIM compliant across the board, where this now is SIM compliant to whatever it is. So whether you choose any one of these fields to be like your main field to use, you can say all this now is wrapped up to be user. So now all of this now you're going to do a field alias for this guy is now equal to this. You're going to do a field alias for this guy is going to equal to this. Same thing, this is equal to this. This is now equal to this. So now when you do your search, index equals blah, your user equals, S Levy. So now you're going to find that across all your different data sets, and it's going to run really fast. But not only that, the reason why it's very important now, you can now map this to a data model. You can't map, index equals blah and then Slebby. You don't map stuff like that to your data model. You only map fields, right? So now that you map the field and this field is extracting different values that you want across the board, now you're able to play with a bunch of different data sets. You can pull that out to your data model. And then not only that, you can run T-stats now, which now grabs that summarized information from me that's, been, graciously summarized, depending on however you decide to, cron schedule it, is now available for you to be able to look at. So I hope that makes sense for everyone. Let me know if it doesn't.
It does.
Awesome, man. Thank you, bro.
Yep.
It's real
No
good.
worries.
Thanks.
Yep. But I got a jet. My flight's getting ready to
Don't
Thank
miss
you,
your
sir.
flight.
walk in.
Wear your mask, bro. Wear your mask.
Yeah, it's right here, man. It's right here, bro.
All right, good.
All right, man. Take care, man.
All right, man.
I saw. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.